Okay, it's recording. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Reality. And again, going through the race and the class expectations of the different races in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. Since I skipped one of these races last time, we'll go over the Hobgoblin, but first, let's go check over the different classes and the races. The different classes and what they need. Artificer, kind of a gadget kind of dude. Intelligence is your main thing. And then, you probably want to invest in Constitution and Dexterity afterwards. Because for the most part, they wear light armor. Well, they wear light or medium armor. Then you have the Barbarian, kind of a savage warrior, gains proficiencies in martial weapons, well, all weapons and all shields, light and medium armor, although they also have an unarmored defense based off of their Constitution and Dexterity, although the main thing you're looking for is Strength, followed by Constitution, and then maybe Dexterity. Then you have the Bard, charismatic, usually depicted as the equivalent of the medieval rock star. Lots of jokes involving bards. Usually involving every person that they can take into a bedroom. And I've said there. And then you have the Cleric. They kind of pray to the gods, asking for help, and that's part of where their magic is based off of. Then you have the Druid. They're kind of nature-based. Again, their powers through nature. Then you have the Fighter, kind of self-explanatory. Also for Bard, charisma is one thing that they're looking for, which is followed by maybe Dexterity, Constitution, because they tend to wear light armor. And Druids and Clerics are kind of similar in that they need Wisdom to be one of their high modifiers, their high stats, because that's what their powers are run off of. But you might want to also consider things like Dexterity or Strength, because depending on how you run them, they might be Strength-based or they might be Dexterity-based. Although for the Druid, they kind of need Strength, though, quite a bit. Although Dexterity is also important because they are limited in what armors they can wear. Because they can't wear anything made of metal. According to their lore. Most lore. Because it's against the rules of nature. But then again, your DM might be able to reflavor certain things, like, say, a scale mail armor that's made out of the scales of a crocodile, for instance. Let's see here. Next we have, and also certain groups of clerics can wear heavy armor, though they are usually limited to light and medium armor. So you can kind of figure out, it's like, which kind of way do you want to go with that? Yeah, because if you're going to go with a light domain, they wear heavy armor. So you can go Strength and then Wisdom. Let's see here. What's next? Oh yeah, the Fighter. Okay, it's right there in the name. He's a fighter. Then there's Monk, kind of based off of your Kung Fu movies. Fighter can have either Dexterity or Wisdom as their high thing. I mean, either Dexterity or Strength as their high thing. For a Monk, like I said, based off of your Kung Fu fighters, so that's kind of Dexterity and Wisdom. The idea is they are wise enough to dodge, in addition to being quick quick enough to dodge. You know, they have this unarmored defense. And, which is, you know, and a piece of advice, be careful about multi-classing monk with barbarian, because you can only pick one unarmored defense. And it's like, which is higher? Constitution or wisdom? That's because you have to use dexterity no matter what. So it's like, you gotta think. And it doesn't, that and they don't always mesh. The barbarian monk doesn't exactly mesh really well, per se. Then you have the paladin. They swear some kind of oath to uphold certain tenets. You know, kind of like a fighter with a little bit of holy magic thrown in. Then you have the ranger. They're kind of, again, like well, for the paladin, you want strength and charisma as part of your big ones, as well as constitution. Then for your ranger, dexterity and wisdom are your big ones, because they are like a dexterity-based fighter who use druidic spells. So there's that. So it's possible you can make them more strength-based than dexterity-based, and likewise for the paladin, make them more dexterity-based than strength-based, but kind of depends on what you're going for. Then you have the rogue, sneaky little fella. You know, does around, you know, they're the kind of guy that walks around in the shadows, waiting for the opening, and then takes somebody by surprise. Then you have the sorcerer. This guy's got magic. Let's get back to ranger. I mean, not ranger, rogue. Rogue likes dexterity. And you have the sorcerer. They got magic born within them. You know, they cast spells that they know automatically. And let's see. Then there's the warlock. Basically, he swore an oath to a higher being. Not necessarily God, but we can argue about the whole warlock and cleric thing. You know. And for warlock, you know, they gain their power through this deal. And they need charisma. So does the sorcerer, by the way. So think about that. You know, warlock and sorcerer, you know, they can be very good faces for when you don't have a bard. Although paladin, also good choices of face. And then you have the wizard. He's a smart guy. You know, he's reading the books, and he knows all of the spells. You know, although he has to pick and choose, which ones do I do today? You know, that's the part that I think stinks. Like, I know so many, but I can only pick which ones I can use today. It's kind of funny. And there's a couple of unofficial classes that can be kind of popular. One is the Blood Hunter, as created by Matt Mercer. They kind of indulge in a bit of self-harm in order to put down extra damage on their target. And there's different groups of them. You know, I think the Order of the Lycan looks the most fun. You know, it's the one I can definitely understand and wouldn't mind using. And then you have the Mystic. And I'll admit, I don't really understand the Mystic too well. It's like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I probably have to see about checking out the PDF or something. But, It doesn't really, I'll admit, I don't really understand it too well. Although I know it's intelligence-based. It's also the Blood Hunter. That one's also intelligence-based. Although for the Blood Hunter, they also rely on strength and or dexterity. So, something to think on. Now, let's get back to our race and class expectations. And I'd like to go over to Hobgoblin real quick. I forgot to mention him. Accepted passing. Ability scores +2 to Constitution and +1 to Intelligence. So, Constitution's good for anything, as mentioned, because, hey, better Constitution is more health. And Intelligence, well, that's something like an Artificer or a Wizard would use. Dark Vision, always good. They also have Martial Training. They're proficient with 2 martial weapons of their choice, and they are proficient with light armor. So if you're going for, like, say, a Wizard, you can be wearing light armor and basically save the spell slot that's meant for mage armor. Granted, there's the difference between mage armor and light armor. You know, studded leather armor is 1 point of difference in favor of mage armor. But we're talking about saving a spell slot that you could probably use for something else. Although you might want to still keep mage armor just in case. You know, keep a hold of mage armor just in case you end up in one of those prison situations where you're stripped of your gear. And for something like martial weapons, well, again, going off of Wizard, you might want to grab something like a longbow and a rapier, because both of those are dexterity based, and both do D8 worth of damage. That being said, given that a Wizard uses a D6 hit die, you might want to stay in the back. That way, you don't get hurt as easily. Yeah, Wizards should stay in the back. Same thing with Sorcerers. Warlocks tend to wear decent armor, and so do a number of other spellcasters, especially the there's a lot of spellcasters that have D8 worth of hit die anyways. And then you have the Cleric, and also the Cleric can wear heavy armor depending on which kind you're dealing with, or use martial weapons. And then you have the Druid, who can shapeshift into animals. And therefore gain extra pools worth of hit dice. Okay. And then you have the Orc. Let's go back. Goblin, that's your +2 to Dexterity, +1 to Constitution. Kind of small guy, so there's that. Then you have Kobold, +2 to Dexterity. And personally, I would throw in a floating +1 somewhere. Oh, one thing it's like the pack tactics and sunlight sensitivity might be an issue. But they kind of cancel each other out in the right circumstances. Because pack tactics grant you an advantage if you have an ally within 5 feet of your target. Its sunlight sensitivity gives you a disadvantage. So it's like, so long as you got a buddy nearby, hey, you can just attack. Orc, +2 to Strength, +1 to Constitution, so kind of strength-based classes. Yanti, you have a +2 to Charisma and +1 to Intelligence, so actually we happen to be ran a Paladin, a Yanti Paladin, and that was kind of fun, because their spell modifier is just, because, Charisma syncs up nicely with Paladin. It's quite fun being able to use poison spray. Um, Next up, we have Xanthar's Guide to Everything. There's no races mentioned in it, but it's got some pretty cool subclasses, and well, let's put it this way. This kind of changed the rules a little bit in my one group, because, well, let's just say I showed this to my Dungeon Master, and woo, especially the Celestial Warlock. I mean, basically, you swear an oath to a divine being who grants you healing and holy magic. And, well, it just made my Dungeon Master go. It caused him to go, wow. Yep. Quite fun. Who knows, maybe someone will tell that. I might tell that story someday. Or somebody will. Mordecai's Tome of Foes. Basically a wizard who travels the multiverse. And this kind of expands some pre-existing races, you know, a little bit about the lore. Let's see here. We have some additional tiefling subraces. Starting on this year. Basically, these tieflings take traits from the different demon lords that rule hell. Let's see here. We have Asmodeus. They basically are the same thing as the standard tiefling. Then you have the Beelzebub tiefling. +2 to charisma, +1 to intelligence. That's the same thing. Their spells are a little bit different, but you know it's still charisma based. Neighbor's home. Disparator. Oh, it's a +2 to charisma, same thing, and a +1 to dexterity. So there's that. You know, go things like. Sometimes you have to laugh at a dog. Well, anyways, you have the Disparator tiefling. They have a +2 to charisma, which most tieflings have, and a +1 to dexterity. So something like a bard would be a really good fit, or anything that needs dexterity. And he just want to dump charisma. Spells are a little bit different. You know, they can cast Disguise Self, which can be kind of useful if you're trying to infiltrate someplace. And cast Detect Thoughts. You know, that's kind of useful. Then you have Werner. Their +1, it goes to Wisdom. So there's that. They know the Friends Cantrip, Charm Person. You know, they do a lot of let's be nice sort of things. Then there's Galesa. It's boost to charisma and dexterity. You know, they're kind of about illusions and disguises and making themselves invisible. kind of useful. Then you have Levistus, Charisma and Constitution for them. Then no Ray of Frost, Armor of the Glacius. Then they can cast Darkness. Then you have Mamnon, Charisma and Intelligence. Mage Hands, Sensors, Floating Disc, Arcane Lock. Yeah, kind of useful. Then you have the Malfestus. Yeah, that's a +2 to Intelligence, +1 to. +2 to Charisma, +1 to Intelligence. You have Mage Hand, Burning Hands, and then Flame Blade, kind of useful. Then there's a Zariel. And you basically get a +1 to your strength. So, hey, Paladin, buddy! It's kind of funny. See here. Elves we have. Let's see here. We have the Eldaron elves, which tend to vary, depending on which mood they're in. Autumn, winter, spring, summer, and they have different personality traits depending on which mode they are in, and they get a +1 to Charisma, so there's that. And they can essentially do a version of Misty Step for like up to 30 feet, and they can cast an additional effect at 3rd level depending on their season. Wherein, like I say, if they're autumn, they can potentially cause 2 creatures within 10 feet of them must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or be charmed by them for a minute. If you're winter, they might be frightened. And spring, well, you can touch one willing creature within 5 feet of you. That creature teleports instead of yourself, appearing within an unoccupied space of your choice that you can see within 30 feet of you. So, you want to help out that rogue? Or teleport a wizard that's hurting away from the front lines? Kind of useful. Summer, immediately after you use your phase step, each creature of your choice you can see within 5 feet of you takes fire damage equal to your charisma modifier, minimum of 1 damage. That seems kind of lame. But you stick in the middle, but if say you are a paladin that's maxed out your charisma score, and well, you teleport right in the middle of a bunch of enemies. Fire, 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 fire. Ah, we're on fire. Unless, of course, they're all fire imps, then still, kind of useful. Then you have the sea elf, there's under the sea. +1 to their constitution, so. Sea elf training, proficiency with sea with spear, trident, light crossbow, and net. You have a swim speed and can breathe air and water. And you can communicate with sea creatures. And as an added language, you can speak, read, and write Aquan. Then you have Shatterkai, +1 to their constitution. They're kind of a shadow elf. And they have resistance to necrotic damage. Doesn't come up all that often, but can be quite devastating. Blessing of the Raven Queen. Teleport up to 30 feet and gain resistance to all damage when you teleport using this trait. Last start of your next turn. Kind of useful. Then you have the Duergar. They're kind of like the Dark Elves. I mean, you know, they're like the Drow, as I mentioned. Here, 81. They have the typical dwarf traits, plus the following. +1 to strength, superior dark vision, but they have sunlight sensitivity. Yeah, they can read, speak, and write undercommon. They have resistance against. They have advantage on saving throws against illusions and being charmed or paralyzed because of their history, which as well as the which it has to deal with the mind flayers that had enslaved them. They basically gain resistance to that sort of stuff. When they reach 3rd level, they can cast the enlarge reduce spell on themselves once, using only the enlarge option. When you reach 5th level, you can cast the invisibility spell, but you can't be in sunlight to cast these spells. Let's see here. It's Duergar. The Gift. '96. The Gift kind of look like, sort of like Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z. Common thing for the Gift, +1 to intelligence, so wizards and artificers, or eldritch knights or arcane tricksters. They can read, speak, and write common and Gift. There are 2 kinds, Githyanki and Githzarari. When it comes to the Gift, like I said, they were humans that were abducted by the mind flayers, taken to a subdimension, and went through a bunch of things. They managed to overthrow the mind flayers and gain their freedom. Only problem is they had 2 different leaders who disagreed with certain things. You have the Githyanki. They're more brutal. Strength-based, +2 to strength, so, you know, strength-based fighters, barbarians, paladins, anything that loves strength. They, lore-wise, they tend to lean towards lawful evil, where they serve this Lich Queen. Although Renegade Githyanki tend to lean towards chaos. You know, and due to how long they live, they have learned one language of their choice and are proficient with one skill or tool of their choice. In their city, they have time to learn all kinds of things. They also are in martial prodigy. They are proficient with light and medium armor, and with short swords, long swords, and great swords. So kind of useful if you're going to go for a wizard. You know, to have proficiency with medium armor. Although, I would probably stay away from making this guy a fighter or a ranger or a paladin or a barbarian, unless you decide to take those extra weapon and armor proficiencies that you would get with the class and turn them into extra tools. You also know the Mage Hand cantrip, and at 3rd level you can cast a jump spell. Then you can cast Mystic Steps at 5th level, and you use intelligence. And then there's the Zaral. which gain a boost to their wisdom, +2. They tend to lean towards lawful neutral. They have advantage on saving throws against being charmed or frightened. They also know the Mage Hand cantrip. And they can cast, at 3rd level, they can cast a shield spell. And they can, and then later on cast Detect Thoughts. So, like I said, against the Yankee, I'll probably say it seems to lean towards fighters and paladins and barbarians. Although with those weapon proficiencies, I might steer away from those because it's like, what's the point? Unless I was to say, take those extra proficiencies with those extra weapon and armor proficiencies and swap them for some tools or instruments. And for the get the Ferrari at +2 to wisdom. Well, let's see, your druid, cleric, monk. They seem to be themed towards monk, and of course ranger. Then finally we have the deep gnome. And they get +1 to dexterity, superior dark vision, stone camouflage. They have advantage on dexterity, stealth checks to hide in rocky terrain and underground. And they can read, speak, and write under common. So that's kind of useful. Let's see how much left. Well, let's get on to Ravnica. Ravnica is a Magic the Gathering setting, kind of set in like a techno city. It's got mage tech, that sort of thing. Let's see your race. Let's see your human, elf, centaur. Okay, these horse folk +2 to strength, +1 to wisdom, so something like a strength-based cleric or druid. Or if you just want strength to be your dump stat, and then you can just add that +2, that way you have a 0 modifier to any skills related to that. They tend to stand between 6 and 8 feet tall, with their equine bodies reaching about 4 feet at the withers. They are medium sized. Speed is 40 feet. They are Fey. They also have a charge. If you move at least 30 feet straight towards a target and hit it with a melee attack on the same turn, you immediately follow that attack with a bonus action, making one attack against the target with your hooves. Hooves. They are natural weapons that can be used to make unarmed strikes. You hit, doing bludgeoning damage equal to 1d4 plus your strength modifier. Yeah. Basically, if you're in a situation that involves skeletons, you always have a blunt weapon. Equine build. You count as one size larger when determining your carrying capacity and the weight you can push or drag. So that's kind of useful. You are the emergency mount. Make sure that whomever rides you gets permission, though. Otherwise, you might buck them off. In addition, any climb that requires hands and feet is especially difficult for you because of your equine legs. When you make such a climb, each foot of movement costs you 4 extra feet instead of the normal 1 extra foot. So basically, if you're trying to climb up a cliff, Where some people would be able to move like 15 feet, you're moving like 10 feet. Let's hear your survivor, your proficiency with one of the following skills of your choice: animal handling, medicine, nature, or survival. It's kind of useful. Then for languages, you can speak, read, and write Common and Sylvian. You know, kind of a famous language. Goblin, I already mentioned Goblin, plus 2 to Dex, plus 1 to Constitution, yada yada. Loxodon, kind of an elfin-based creature. Plus 2 to Constitution and plus 1 to Wisdom. So, Constitution is good for anything. Wisdom's for clerics, monks, druids, rangers. Powerful build, they count as one size larger. They have Loxodon Serenity. They have advantage on saving throws against being charmed or frightened. That's kind of useful. Natural armor. They have thick, leathery skin. Not wearing armor, your AC is 12 plus your Constitution modifier. You can use your natural armor to determine your AC if the armor you wear would leave you with a lower AC. A shield's benefits apply as normal. You know, that's kind of useful. Let's say you're a wizard. You can, and you have a trunk. You can dress things with your trunk. Use a snorkel, reach of 5 feet, and can lift a number of pounds equal to 5 times your strength score. So theoretically, if you had a strength score of 20, you could lift 100 pounds with that thing. You can use it to do the following simple tasks: lift, drop, hold, push, or pull an object or creature. Open or close a door or container, grapple someone, or make an unarmed strike. Your DM might allow other simple tasks to be added to the list of options. Can't wield weapons or shields, or do anything that requires manual precision, such as using tools or magic items or performing the somatic components of a spell. Use a keen spell. Keen smell, you can gain advantage on perception, survival, and investigation checks that involve smell. So that's kind of useful. You also have Loxodon, Common and Loxodon as languages. Then you have the Minotaur, big bull fella. Plus 2 to strength, plus 1 to constitution, so there's that. They have horns that do 1d6 plus strength modifier piercing damage. Guarding rush, immediately have to use dash action on your turn. You can make 1 melee and move at least 20 feet. You can make a melee attack with your horns as a bonus action. And then you have hammering horns. After you hit a creature with a melee attack as part of the attack action on your turn, you can use a bonus action to attempt to shove a creature with your horns. It has to make a d6. It has to make a strength saving throw against DC equal to your 8 plus proficiency bonus plus strength modifier. You push it out to 10 feet from you. Then you have imposing presence. You have proficiency with one of the following skills: intimidation or persuasion. Intimidation, I see. Cattle can be scared. But persuasion? I don't know if they're that persuasive. One moment. So, let's see here. Well, like I said, persuasive. I don't see persuasive. But still, if you're going to go with the expected soldier type of background, well, you can at least grab Persuasion as a free feature. So, yeah, strength score, the way it seems to be strength-based fighter, barbarians, or paladins. This is your Civic Hybrid. Oh, this guy is definitely a lot of customizing right here. +2 to Constitution, and one ability score of your choice increases by 1. So, this could go for any class, you know. They have dark vision. Languages are common and one choice of either Elvish or Vidalcan. The idea with the Civic Hybrid is that these guys were either humans, elves, or Vidalcan who underwent a change that modified them, added on additional traits. You know, the idea is that there would be like super soldiers. But if you're not set around the color, you could say that they are descendants of folks who were caught up in a mage war and the spells had altered them. You know, it's something you could do. They also gained an animal enhancement, one at first level, and then a second at 5th level. The first level, they could choose one of the following. Magic Glide, they could just subtract up to 100 feet from a fall and not get harmed. You know, you could just glide. Then you have Nimble Climber. You gain a climbing speed equal to your walking speed. Underwater Adaptation, you can breathe air and water and you gain swim speed equal to your walking speed. Kind of useful. Then at 5th level, you gain one of the previous following, which you didn't take, or one of the next. Grappling appendages, you know, they grow alongside your arms. Choose whether or not they're claws or tentacles. You can use them to grapple a creature, and they can count as a natural weapon, so you can use them to make an unarmed strike equal to 1d6 plus strength modifier. But they can't, you know, grab weapons or that kind of, or anything that's specialized. Another possibility, Carapace, you gain a +1 to AC when you're not wearing heavy armor. Kind of useful if, say, you're a barbarian. And then you have Acid Spit. Be loud. 2d6 worth of acid damage. And then 6 succeeds on the dexterity saving throw, equal to 1d8 plus your Constitution modifier plus your proficiency bonus. You know, it kind of scales like a cantrip. And depending on how high your Constitution is, you can use it multiple times. Then you have the Vidalcan Blue Folk. +2 to intelligence, +1 to wisdom, so there's a lot of spellcasters you can do right there. They have advantage in all intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws, which is kind of useful. You'll gain proficiency with the following skill: Arcane, History, Investigation, Medicine, Performance, or Sleight of Hand. You're also proficient with the tool of your choice. Also, when you make an ability check using the chosen skill or tool, roll a d4 and add the number to the total, to the check's total. That's kind of useful. You can also breathe underwater for up to an hour. That might be useful. If, say, someone threw you overboard during the middle of a fight and the rest of the crew is busy and you have a low strength score. It's kind of useful. You know, just grab a hold of the anchor rope or whatever and, you know, slowly climb up while they're busy fighting. And of course you can speak, read, and write Common, Vidalcan, and one other language of your choice. And that's around the color races. And right in here's an interesting race. This is Acquisitions Incorporated. It's like a crossover with the guys that made Arcade Penny Arcade. I've not read that comic, but that webcomic. But a few things look kind of funny. It's kind of set. It's more of a. It's more of the Acquisitions Corporation is like, what if you ran some sort of business? What if dungeon delving was part of a business? Nothing personal. It's just business. And the idea is, how do you play with certain classes in a city setting? Like, say, barbarian. They're typically uncouth. Well, what if you try to dress them up in a nice suit? Yeah, that sort of guys. I mean, how would a druid run in the city? Where do they find the animals in the city? Well, I would say work for the zoo. And they have a new race called the Verdan. 72, page 72. Now, the Verdan, again, they are a goblinoid. Kind of, the idea is that they used to be goblins and hobgoblins until they were exposed by that which endures, which is some kind of entity, I mean, it's not exactly clear what it is, but the idea is these guys are always changing. And have these ears that grow so long that the fashion is they take their ears and they put earrings through both of them to hold them together. I guess so that way they ain't flapping in the wind like bat wings or something. They're also cultural chameleons because they don't really have much of a history of their own. +1 to Constitution, so good for anything, and +2 to Charisma. So we're looking at something like a Bard, maybe a Paladin, Warlock, or Sorcerer. At least in this, because, well, at least from the stats. Although when it comes to Paladin, one thing you need to watch out for is it is very interesting. Size. They start out small, similar to goblins, from which they were created from, ranging from 3 to 4 feet in height. So, initially disadvantaged to things like with heavy weapons. But at some point after reaching maturity, they go through a sudden growth spurt of 2 feet or more. At first level, you are a small creature. Then when you reach 5th level, you become a medium creature. So basically, depending on how you want to run that, at about between 4th and 5th level, if you get like a feeling like something's about going on, it might be a good idea to head to the clothing store, so that way you at least have a pair of pants. That way you can at least have a change of pants and a shirt. And maybe a trip to the armorer to get armor that fits after you get bigger. We also have black blood healing. It's a sign of your people's connection to that which endures. It boosts your natural healing. When you roll a 1 or 2 on any hit die you spend at the end of a short rest, you can re-roll the die and must use the new roll. So basically, let's say you roll a 1 and a short rest, and of course you don't like that 1. You can pick it up and re-roll, and maybe you get something better. So that could be useful for any class right there. Especially, every class likes having better healing options. Something to think Limited telepathy. You can speak telepathically to any creature you see within 30 feet of you. Don't need a shared language for the creature to be able to understand you, but it must be able to understand at least one language. It's kind of slow and limited, allowing you to transmit only simple ideas and concepts. Straight forward. Yeah. Basically, the idea is like, you left, you right, me straight. Short, simple, to the point. Persuasive, proficiency and persuasion skill. Telepathic insight, advantage on all wisdom and charisma saving throws. That's kind of cool because some of those are nasty. You speak, read, and write Common, Goblin, and one additional language that might reflect on your character's background. And there's that one. How much do we have left? Well, I think that's the end of this one. So, refresh your Volos. Talk about Mordecai. Talk about Ravnica. And now Acquisitions Incorporated. Well, that's the end of this episode of Fantasy Reality. And talk to you more next time. As that might be the last of it, at least until September. Probably make another video next week. Alright. But that's the end of this episode. See you later. Bye.